Hello there, beautiful souls. Rosie Glow here. It's been a little while, but it felt like an important date to share some, musings with you about the current state of play around fighting for freedom and truth while surrounded by lies. And I was going to say porcupines, but essentially, not everyone will know what that means. And I'm really making this on the basis of us understanding that's what is happening around us from a multidimensional perspective and from a 5D lens focus is also happening inside of us. So we're on a massive cleanup job, both internally and in the world around us. And, today, Remembrance Sunday, is a day that is very, very significant because it's a day that we honour those who fought for our freedom. And it is the day that officially was when the Second World War ended. And it was supposed to finish at midday, apparently, but the logic was, well, why don't we finish an hour earlier and then more lives will be spared? This is something that I was talking about with my beloved today. And, this is it, isn't it? It's how human life can end up being a commodity. And with the best intention in the world, we are finding ourselves at a time when those who are fighting for our freedom currently are basically being persecuted. They are being attacked, ridiculed, I say they when I should be saying we, and silenced, for want of a better word, on the basis that the information that they are seeking to share, or we are seeking to share with the world, is deemed dangerous. And you know what? I can kind of understand it from the perspective of a third dimensional lens, which is if people are so invested in what they actually hear and see through the mainstream terrestrial channels to be true, then to discover that a lot of it is not really based on secure foundations, on genuine truth, is potentially very hazardous for everybody. Now, you may or may not know that last month I ended up featured in a Daily Mail article along with 3 other starseed women and their partners. And this led to being invited to go onto a daytime TV show, a popular daytime TV show, to discuss this issue further. Now, this was on a main terrestrial channel, and I'm not going to say which one, and I'm not going to say which program, but essentially we got to the point that it was all go, 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 and it's very exciting. And I'd spent the morning talking to the researchers about what we would be covering, what we'd be talking about. And honestly, it was like at least a 90-minute conversation, if not 2 hours. And I could sense how blown away the researcher was that was talking to me. All I was doing was asking questions. I was not really imparting my view of the world onto them. I was simply asking questions that made them look at everything that they took for granted in a different light. And this was really amazing. And I was like, this is so what we need in the mainstream. This would be amazing. So get people thinking. It would be like an opportunity for us to review where we are currently, and then to say, well, what can we have that's better than this? What could we do instead of this, rather than keep arguing who's right and who's wrong? What is the next evolution from this that is beneficial to all? By that afternoon, I had a call from the producer, hugely apologetic, very frustrated, saying that they actually had to pull the segment from this TV show, and that it's not something they'd be able to run in the future, but it would be one that they would actually not be able to run at all. And to me, it was a jaw-dropping moment, because it's actually some legislation or rules, guidelines that they have to go by, called the Matrix, which is apparently quite normal in most of our institutions, that there are guidelines called the Matrix. I didn't know this. That basically made the lawyers feel that it was too contentious a subject to actually bring onto a mainstream channel. Now, I find that fascinating when I consider what is discussed on mainstream channels, on the very same TV shows that people watch. Most recently, you may have heard of the scandal of a certain well-known, I'm not going to say well-loved, family doctor, rhymes with Killary, basically telling people to ignore leaflets that come through the door that look like the yellow card scheme, but are actually full of data that is misleading and actually would really scare people and put them off the current therapeutic measures that are being, for want of a better word, forced on everybody by hook or by crook at this stage. And here's the thing. What was written on those actual leaflets is directly from the Yellow Card Scheme. Was it a Yellow Card Scheme leaflet? No. However, it takes one supposedly esteemed expert to say, ignore this information. This information is not correct. It's misinformation. And people will believe it. When there is so much evidence, if you like, building up to say, this is actually something we really need to look at and we need to stop ignoring until we can't ignore it anymore. And it got me really thinking about how we look outside of us, how we blame, shame, condemn, judge others, and even aspects of our own being. And it's very easy to point fingers, but just imagine for a moment that that doctor is an aspect of your consciousness, that those journalists or those presenters or the medical people or the scientific people or the governmental people that are basically doing the no, you will do as we say, this is the right way forward, are also aspects of your consciousness. Like if you can actually start to look at this differently, it will allow you to do the inner cleanup job. Because when I talk about fighting for freedom and truth surrounded by lies, it is like our soul internally is seeking truth, but is surrounded by the lies of our collective and individual conditioning. So the only way that we will get to really see a shift in the collective is through being aware of how our inner resistance will show up, and to meet it and greet it with love and curiosity. Now, this does not mean that we bow down to it, but it means that we accept that what we see outside is also inside. And this is a very, very powerful use of our imagination. And it is very important we use our imagination, because this is how we switch our perception of reality. And as a result of that switch of our perception of reality, reality around us actually changes. The physical world around us starts to shift in its vibration. It meets us in our new vibration. So, I wanted to just share that personal experience of mine in light of, the way that we're kind of told, there, dear, don't worry, everything's fine, you don't have to worry, it's all okay, listen to us, we know what we're doing. On the one hand, there's that element, which is a patriarchal paradigm. On the other hand, if people were telling us on the mainstream news, oh my God, be scared, be really, really scared. Like, you shouldn't trust anything. We can't find a solution. This is terrible. Everybody's going to suffer. Would that actually help us? And I consider this idea of us fighting for freedom and truth, and those who have fought for our freedom and truth, and the price they had to pay being their lives, or their freedom, an opportunity for us to actually consider what we are really scared of, because most of us will try and protect our own lives at all costs, and other people's lives, depending on what we actually do. Yet, when you're not scared, and I say this very cautiously, but when you no longer believe that this physical reality, this physical existence is your only existence, but you are actually a soul on a continuum journey, and this is one lifetime. Think like Doctor Who, for example, who regenerates, right? Then maybe we'd have a different sense of bravery about us. Maybe we would be able to activate a different part of us that is able to stand up for truth, to be willing to see that actually it's not new that we're living in a world full of delusion, illusion, and outright lies. It is that it's been going on for so long that we just think it's normal. And if we really do want to live a reality where we have a foundational truth that is one of coming from love, then we have to witness all aspects of our being that aren't operating from that love platform, but they are operating from fear, from struggle, from the need to control in order to feel safe, and to help these parts of our being to evolve, not just in ourselves, but in the collective. So I think you all know that, like, if you've broken wind and they say, if you smelt it, you dealt it, right? What goes around comes around, point your finger, look inwards. Like, all of these cliches are here for us to really be able to say, okay, there's no escaping the fact that we're all imperfect. We're perfect in our imperfection. We've just had a new moon in Scorpio. That new moon has been all about the sting in the tail. Where is it that we get to when we've had enough and that's it? We drop the act, we drop the niceties, and it just comes out raw. Like, that's one element. The other element has been, who are we when we don't get what we want? And then the other element I've been inviting people to explore is, what is it about you don't want other people to know? Like, what is it you hide? Because all of these parts have power over us. The bits of us we hide, the bits of us that we suppress, and the bits of us that ultimately need to step forward, need to be activated if we are truly, our genuine existence is being threatened. Now, physical reality is important. Living a long, healthy, vibrant life is and should be a human right, in my opinion. We then have conversations and arguments about what being healthy looks like, right? And the fact that we have a particular healthcare system is great. You know, there are certain limitations to it that are big, but we have a system. The question is, how can we have a better system? Like, what would it look like? Because at the moment, there is a one-size-fits-all apparent solution for everybody that doesn't actually do what it says on the box. So it means that 1 is not enough, 2 is not enough, more are required every 6 months. And even those people that weren't at risk are now needing to have it, including the youngsters, right? Now, if you take yourself back to the start of all of this a couple of years ago, even though this was a very serious situation for some people, like very, very small minority of the population would really, really suffer with this. We've gone from, okay, let's protect those really vulnerable, to everybody must follow a protocol to keep the most vulnerable safe. And this is the big question, my friends, is how did we go from something that was effectively not a problem for, let's say, 90% of us, maybe 95, maybe even 99, to now, even though this supposed measure of therapeutics doesn't stop you catching it, passing it on, and actually it doesn't even stop you from dying from it or having serious implications, we still want everybody to have it everywhere. And resources, ability to travel, freedom will be limited until we do. And dare anyone say anything against this, they are branded heretics, effectively, in today's day and age. How dare they speak against it? It's like the emperor's new clothes, right? How dare they say the emperor's got no clothes on? Well, excuse me, but, if we are going to make a decision that affects the whole planet, should we not make a decision that is transparent, that is based on all the facts? How can we say, don't read this leaflet because it's full of misinformation that's just going to scare you and make you not do what we say we want you to do? In my world, when I was doing all of the birth work, the yellow card scheme was basically essential for being able to improve quality of care and being able to see that, what is being proposed and the outcomes might not actually be justified as a result of what is being proposed as a solution or an answer or a therapeutic intervention. We are not allowed to question anymore the efficacy of what is put forward as the solution. And this is incredibly disturbing wherever you stand or lie on this fence. I say this because I've come to believe that what we do see and what we do hear and what we do read is very much by design. What is allowed to be viewed is by design, and what is allowed to be heard is by design. And what isn't is basically hidden. Now, in our hearts, we do know the truth. And as we move towards the full moon in Taurus, we've had to go through all of this murky illusion, yuckness, to be able to get to a place where we can say, right, I can feel the ground beneath me. This is solid ground. Let's rip up everything that doesn't feel solid, that doesn't stand that doesn't lead anywhere. Let's just lift all of that up and out. It's a bit like Pandora's box. What you're left with is hope. In our instance, what we're left with is a solid foundation. And that solid foundation is what we can build on. So the way I see it is we can't really have a solid foundation whilst there is repression and suppression of potential truth or potential evidence that is contrary to whatever narrative is being put forward. And we can't make a global decision until we've made a personal decision. Do I want to see the truth inside of me? Do I want to see how much of me is operating from love and how much of me is operating from fear and from programming that's trying to protect me, but at the cost of my autonomy, at the cost of my capacity to experience life fully? What kind of world do I want to live in? One that is based on denial, suppression, repression, or one that allows me to learn my lessons, to consider the highest good over the greater good, to intend that we align with the highest principles and constantly evolve that? Ask any of my clients. We'll be going down a road and then we'll flip the perception upside down and we'll say, all right, well, what if the guiding motivational force isn't actually that there is a purpose to everything? And maybe it's just all random. Where does this leave us now? What kind of experience do we want to have? I believe we all want to feel safe. We all want to feel loved. We all want to have a sense of fulfillment, of being given the support to move out of struggle into more joy, more thriving, more wonder. And when our basic needs are met, that's when we can effectively gaze at our navel and quantify and consider elements to do more with self-actualization and self-realization. But until our basic needs are met, we can't. And we're not all at the same stage of the journey. So I've had to do a lot of forgiving in myself and in my personal collective lately around the limitations that I see in others that they can't seem to see themselves. It's their blind spots. Now, I have to have compassion for them because ultimately I have blind spots. And unless I am willing to face the discomfort of them being pointed out to me lovingly, sometimes less lovingly, then I'm never going to grow beyond that blind spot. Those around me may or may not want to see the truth. Many of us want to stay in a state of blame. Others may want to hold on to our shame. Others may just want to stay and struggle because it keeps reaffirming whatever narrative they were born into. It feels familiar even if it's uncomfortable. So the point of this time period, because we're really still moving into the depths of the darkness through the Northern Hemisphere at least, is to embrace the discomfort, to embrace the desire to feel uncomfortable for a bit as a result of being able to access another layer of your being that you wouldn't be able to access if you don't go through that discomfort. And when it comes to honouring those who've really fought for our freedom, let's do that now. Let's honour those who are fighting for our freedom today. We might not know who they are. In fact, we might think they are our enemy. But let's just own for a second that freedom fighters are those who aren't willing to be compliant, complacent, to rely on other people's version of the truth. Our freedom fighters are our truth seekers. And there is a difference now as humanity has evolved and is evolving to this stage. It might not have been the case 4 generations ago. Our freedom fighters were those who were being organised by others and were doing what they were told and were following the rules. Is that justified today, in today's day and age? If you haven't yet checked out Russell Brand's channel on YouTube, I highly recommend you do. That man is doing a wonderful lot of brilliant things that I'm so glad he's doing because, he has the budget and the support to be able to well research things and to put things in such a way that gets people thinking and feeling. And that's what we all want to be doing right now, is feeling into what we think and considering whether we might be able to broaden our perspective and therefore to be able to understand how there are these different opinions and where we should really give our energy to. Because I was privy to another video that I watched recently, which was basically to do with the WHO. And it was a discussion with subtitles, but it was in English, you could pick out the words, about the situation of making it compulsory. I'm using different words for a reason, for everybody to have to comply to a certain therapeutic measure, including children. And when the person that was being quizzed about it, who is a key player in the WHO, by the way, his responses were very standard, including, well, no, yeah, it won't actually stop you catching it or passing it on, but it will stop you dying from it or having serious adverse reactions. To which the response was, well, no, because people are still dying from it and having serious adverse reactions, even though they've had both, and then the extra boosts that are offered. Yes, well, that is due to comorbidities or other serious issues. Let's go back to the origins of this. Let's go back to the actual threat in the first place that was only ever going to be seriously affecting those who had other health issues or were extremely vulnerable. Do you see the catch-22? One was free. The other has cost a lot of money to a lot of people and made lots of people very wealthy. Back to fighting for freedom and truth surrounded by lies. You're not going to just receive the truth and go, oh, I'm so liberated. You're going to be pissed off, angry. You're going to want to blame someone, fight. It's all part of the journey of awakening. What? Why? How? When? It's part of the journey, my friends. So my invitation to you is, we can honour those who have passed. We can honour those who have fought for our freedom. And we can consider what that means in today's day and age. And perhaps cultivate the courage inside of us to do the kind of inner journeying that will allow us to be truth seekers and freedom fighters. But when I talk about fighting for freedom, I invite you to just consider the analogy that there are always two wolves fighting in our heads. One, the wolf of love and cooperation and compassion and seeking to heal. One, the wolf of destruction, of needing to control in order to feel safe. And the one that's going to win is the one that we feed the most. So if you're going to fight for freedom and truth, feed what you want to see in this world. Let that motivate you rather than just seeking to battle against an evil in your perception. Seek the solution. Align with that before you do any fighting. And that is the 5D perspective. If you want to join me on Thursday, we will have the full moon energy update, energy healing, and energy upgrade. And this is basically for us to be able to overcome the challenges that have occurred as a result of the new moon in Scorpio, to feel a sense of being held by a lovely soft pink blanket and to remember that it's not all going to happen today. You know, there's a 4-year war that was preceded by another 4-year war, and change doesn't happen overnight. We are in the middle of a long birth canal. So we have to feed our souls with as much nourishment as possible in order to have the sustenance required to keep going. And that means seek out what brings you joy, what nurtures and comforts you. Seek out what can honestly be something you can rely on, rather than the kind of self-medicating dependencies that ultimately cost you your well-being and your health. They're temporary plaster fixes. They're not actually going to help you to be able to deal with the root cause. They might be needed at time to time. There's no judgment here, but it's be honest, be real with yourself. This has been such an important part of my journey, and it has allowed me to keep growing even though I'm imperfect, and to know when it really is time to put something down. And then when I pick it back up again, because invariably we all do, we do this dance a few times before we kind of go, you know what, that's really not for me. To see where it takes us, to see what kind of comfort it brings, but also what the price that we pay is. So be sweet with your soul, be gentle, be honest, be open, be raw, be all of that. Remember what I said before about, who are you when you don't get what you want? What is it about you that you don't want other people to see? And what is it that gets triggered in you that is really uncomfortable to feel when you are basically playing roles out in your life that aren't really your genuine truth? They're just how you feel you should show up. We all know what it's like when we were taught by a teacher that was really well past their retirement, but they felt they should keep going because they owed it to their students. Don't be that teacher. Okay, you're not serving anyone by continuing to do what basically you're not enjoying, which you're not aligned with, but you think you should do, because if you don't do it, no one else will. Honestly, starting to look for better ways of doing things for yourself will mean that you are able to start seeing better ways of doing things in the world. And that is the seed that we're all planting. So, final little announcement for you all is thank you so much for everybody who participated in the calling on an ancestral miracle, and we did the lineage clearing for All Hallows Eve, or Samhain. We have managed to count up the monies, and we are making a donation both to the refugee kitchen, the community refugee kitchen, and also to St. Peter's Church, who do a wonderful job in Brighton of supporting the homeless, especially some homeless women that they work with, to help uplift them. So we've managed to, I think it's £30 is going to each of those organisations. And that was just over 11% of, it's 22% in total of everything that we raised. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make that meditation and that whole session an evergreen. So for people, when you purchase it now, we'll basically double what we said before. So 22% will go to the community kitchen and 22% will go to a homeless charity. And I'm also going to throw in another meditation that I found really useful after I had done the deep clearing, which is the Infinite Love Flame Whole Body Upgrade. So if you're watching this and you're interested, just drop us a message. We'll make this available through our store on rosieglow.com. And, it's always good to do bloodline clearing. It's always good to free our ancestors and ourselves from the patterns of the past. They're not repeated in the future. So you can do that anytime. You don't have to wait for the 31st of October, anytime at all. And if you are interested in joining me for the solstice, then that will be taking place on Monday, the 21st of December. I've got something else planned for you then. So please book it in your diary, 7:30 p.m. at UK time. And yeah, like I said, this Thursday, if you would like to join me for the full moon energy update, energy upgrade and healing, this is specifically for starseeds and those who want to anchor 5D consciousness, then please remember to go to the website and to purchase through our store. And tomorrow evening is our yoga. So Monday nights is multidimensional yoga. I'm going to be teaching that class tomorrow night. And again, it's going to be about us meeting our inner victim, our inner persecutor, our inner rescuer, and playing with these aspects of our being, seeing how they show up in our yoga practice, and literally cultivating a sense of humour that will allow us to be able to move through it all. So I'm going to leave that there, and I just invite you to open your heart to joining me on this multidimensional perspective adventure. It's unique. It allows you to live in this world from a higher perspective, consciousness, whilst accepting the density, the presence of what is here, and really discovering your role in all of this. Remember, your role is enjoyable. Maybe there's a bit of you that likes to fight, and therefore fighting for change is part of your journey. For those of us who are not in that vibration, we hold a different vibration in line with that. It's really up to you. So just make the most of who you are, what you want, allow yourself to keep growing and learning, and be patient with your process, okay? Because none of us are going to get it done all in one go, but we are getting it done. So much love. Namaste.